Welcome to Nate's Haunted Hour, where the shadows come alive and the stories of the unknown take hold of your soul. Before we dive into tonight's terrors, make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button, if you dare. Beware, dear listener, for once you enter, there's no turning back. So turn down the lights and prepare yourself for the fright of your life. You're in for an hour of chills, thrills, and tales that haunt the darkest corners of your mind. This is Nate's Haunted Hour. And don't forget, subscribing may just keep the spirits at bay, for now.
Madness of Sainte-Eulalie, The Descent of Sir Aldric. Part 1, The Arrival. It was late in the evening when Sir Aldric arrived at the outskirts of Sainte-Eulalie de Cernon. He reined in his horse, Alerion, who pawed at the ground nervously, snorting into the crisp evening air. Aldric surveyed the landscape, his brow furrowed with concern. The once picturesque valley had grown dark and foreboding. The very earth seemed to radiate unease, a deep sickness that infected the land. Even Alerion, usually stalwart, was unsettled. As they entered the village, Aldric saw few signs of life. The once bustling streets lay deserted, the windows of homes shuttered, as if the people inside cowered from an unseen force. An oppressive silence blanketed the town, broken only by the occasional creak of a door or the distant wail of the wind. Aldric dismounted and approached an old man sitting hunched near a stone well. "Good sir," Aldric's voice was strong but weary. "The castle, where is it?" The man did not meet his gaze, trembling as if in the presence of death itself. His thin, gnarled hand slowly lifted to point toward a dark, looming silhouette on the horizon. The castle of Sainte-Eulalie de Cernon rose against the blood-red sky, its towers jagged and crooked, like the broken teeth of some ancient beast. The sight filled Aldric with an inexplicable dread. "I thank you," Aldric said, though the old man merely muttered unintelligible prayers, his eyes wide with fear. The knight turned and mounted Alerion, spurring his steed forward. Together they rode toward the castle, the ground beneath them feeling cursed, as though soaked in the blood of forgotten souls. As Aldric neared the gates of the castle, an unseen force seemed to press down on him. The air grew heavier, thick with a stench of rot and sulfur. He muttered a prayer under his breath, but his words felt empty, as though God himself could not hear him in this accursed place. The massive iron gates groaned as they swung open before him, and with a final glance at the fading sun, he entered the castle grounds. Alerion's hooves clattered against the cold stone courtyard, the sound muted as if swallowed by the darkness. Aldric could feel eyes upon him, eyes that watched, waited, and hungered. Part 2. The Descent. The castle was a shadow of its former glory. Sir Aldric entered the grand halls, but where there should have been light and warmth, there was only cold, creeping darkness. Alerion's steady hooves echoed like distant thunder, the only sound in the vast, empty space. Every step forward felt like a journey deeper into some forsaken realm, a descent not into a castle, but into the abyss. Aldric called out, his voice bouncing back at him from the stone walls. "Brother Vincent, Sir Roderick." The names of his fellow Templars, once spoken with warmth and camaraderie, now echoed like cries in a tomb. But no response came, only the eerie silence that clung to every surface. He wandered through vast rooms draped in tattered tapestries, their once brilliant colors now faded and stained with age and neglect. The air was damp, thick with the odor of mildew and decay. Every corner seemed to conceal something, a presence that watched him with malicious intent. Though when he looked, there was nothing, only shadows shifting unnaturally in the flickering light of his torch. Aldric found traces of his brothers, an abandoned shield leaning against a crumbling pillar, a sword left discarded on the ground as if its owner had vanished into thin air. Bloodstains marred the stones beneath his feet, dried and dark, but no bodies. The castle felt devoid of life, yet Aldric could sense that he was not alone. It was as he entered the great hall that the visions began. At first, the scene was a flicker, brief like the play of light in the corner of his eye. But then it grew vivid, overwhelming his senses. The hall around him transformed before his eyes. The worn tapestries were replaced with vibrant banners, and the long dining table that had been bare was now laden with food and drink. The fire roared in the hearth, and seated around the table were his comrades, Brother Vincent, Sir Roderick, Sir Baldwin, and the others. They laughed, their voices rich and filled with life. Aldric's heart surged with hope as he stepped forward. "My brothers," he called, his voice catching with emotion, but something was wrong. As Aldric drew closer, the joyous scene fractured. His comrades turned toward him, their faces gaunt and lifeless. Their eyes were black, hollow voids that stared straight through him. Their skin hung loose on their bones, pale and sickly. He reached out, but his hand passed through them like smoke. In an instant, the warmth of the room vanished, plunging Aldric back into the cold, empty darkness of the true hall. He staggered backward, breath shallow, heart pounding. His sword clattered to the stone floor as he fell to his knees, clutching his head in a desperate attempt to banish the vision. Was this a test of his faith? Was he being punished for some sin? He prayed, whispering the words urgently, but his prayers felt empty, the familiar solace absent. Then the whispers began. They slithered through the air like snakes, crawling into his ears and wrapping around his thoughts. At first they were faint, almost like the wind, but they grew louder, clearer. "Leave," they whispered. "Turn back. There is no salvation here." The whispers were not voices he recognized, yet they carried a weight, a truth that made Aldric tremble. His faith faltered for the first time in years. God, once his guiding light, felt distant, unreachable. The whispers continued their relentless assault as Aldric rose to his feet, his resolve shaken. But there could be no retreat. He had come too far.